It's the highest profile unsolved case in the nation. It's been the subject of many theories and investigations, none of which have resulted in a successful arrest. On December 26, 1996, 6-year-old JonBenét Ramsey was found dead in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. Her parents, John and Patsy Ramsey, had reported her missing early that morning. Patsy Ramsey found a lengthy handwritten ransom note in the house addressed to her husband, John. About 7 hours after police arrived to investigate the kidnapping, JonBenét's body was found hidden behind a latched door in the basement of the home. Tonight, we revisit this unsolved case 26 years later with JonBenét's father as he joins us for a live interview. I'm Vinnie Politan. Great to have you with us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And let's begin this hour with the notion that no parent should ever have to bury a child. It's awful. When I was in high school, a good friend of mine, his brother passed away, and I went to that funeral. First time I was in a scenario like this. And I can never, ever forget the excruciating pain for my friend's mom that day at that funeral. It was something that was etched into my brain forever. And no matter what the circumstances are surrounding the death, it is unbearable, and it becomes something you carry for the rest of your life. Not easy to deal with, not at all. Now, when we talk about cases involving foul play and murder investigations, homicide investigations, what every victim and victim's family deserves is a full, competent investigation. Now, we know some cases slip through the cracks. We know sometimes there are victims that don't have a family member there, reminding everyone about who they are. And sometimes those cases go cold and no one pays attention to them. And that's unfortunate, because every single victim and every family of every victim deserves a full, competent investigation. Then there are other cases, like the case of JonBenét. I mean, this was the biggest case in the nation. But why is it still unsolved today? 26 years later, why? How could this one not be solved? I'll tell you what, JonBenét's dad, John, he wants some answers. He hasn't forgotten. He carries that with him every single day. We're going to speak to him in just a moment. But first, I want you to take a look at this new documentary that came out. It takes you into great detail into everything that happened here. It's called Suburban Nightmare, JonBenét Ramsey. It's on Tubi. Take a look.
What's your name? Patsy Ramsey, I'm the mother. Oh my God! Please.
I heard Patsy scream. It was a horrible scream. We found this ransom note.
The male DNA, it's never been identified.
It will tell you who is responsible for the murder of JonBenét.
This needs to be looked at seriously. Like, wow, we got this guy.
Please, hurry. Patsy?
Now, I know, for those of you who have followed this case for so many years, there have been a lot of theories, and there have been clouds that have been hanging over different people at different times. But I want to remind you about a big development in this case several years ago. At this point, probably seems like yesterday, but it's actually many years ago. Take a look.
In any state or federal database, one thing was clear. After 25 years of advances in DNA testing, authorities were now certain that the DNA of unknown male 1 didn't belong to anyone in the Ramsey family.
That's when Mary Lacey, the then DA, who was term limited, in 2008 wrote a letter of exoneration of the Ramseys.
The parents' names were cleared after Patsy's passing away, which is unfortunate for her, just to know that peace of mind.
She knew, obviously, she was innocent. Our friends knew we were innocent. We had lots of friends that supported us. So, and even for me, the exoneration was, I was appreciative, but it wasn't a celebration moment. It was, okay, now let's really get on with finding the killer.
And that was 2008. I mean, it's 2023. We still don't have an answer. Joining me tonight in Moab, Utah, JonBenét's father, John Ramsey. John, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Let me begin here. 26 years later, how would you describe where you are emotionally when you think about and you have to talk about JonBenét?
Well, you know, you don't get over the loss of a child. I've lost two, and you as one mother described to me, who had lost her child, said, I have a hole in my heart and it won't heal. And that's just the fact. And you have to go on, but you're a different person. You know, we want answers, as you might expect, but we also want to get those answers, the government needs to do the right thing, and that's what we've been working on really almost from the beginning. And we're making progress, but it's slow, and but we're hopeful again.
So let's start with this question, which is the question I put off the top of the show here. Why isn't this case solved from your perspective?
Well, there's a good contrast between our case and how it was handled and this Idaho tragedy. In our case, we were dealing with inexperienced, no experience detectives in a small town who refused help from the outside, and the results were bad. The Moscow police, the first thing I heard about that murder, I looked to see how big a town Moscow was. Well, it's a small town. I thought, oh boy, it's another Boulder, Colorado. If they don't bring in help and accept help that's offered, it's not going to be solved. Well, they did accept help. They brought in something like 70 FBI officers, and they solved it within a few weeks. And that's what was missing in our case, was the willingness to accept help. The way our system's structured, if a town like Boulder or Moscow has a murder, it's up to the local police. In our case, that one of the detectives was an auto theft investigator. He became a homicide investigator overnight. If they don't ask for help, help cannot come in. And so in the Moscow case, the chief of police did absolutely the right thing, and he asked for help, and he asked for a lot of help, and he got it. Lots of help was offered in our case. It was refused, and it went nowhere. And that was why it hasn't been solved in 26 years. And that's what we're trying to change. And we've been trying to get that changed almost from the first day, when we realized that the competence was just not there in the police department.
Well, has it changed now? Is there who's working on the case? As we're sitting here right now, who's working on the case?
Boulder Police Department. They've refused help, and to this day, still refused help. And, we petitioned the governor of Colorado recently to cause the police, however he chooses to do that, to have the DNA retested. There's a number of samples that have never been tested at cutting-edge labs, of which we know of one for sure. There's several, perhaps. See if we can get a better DNA sample, given the developments in DNA technology over the last 25 years, and then use the public DNA database, which has been used in the last couple of years very successfully by police departments to find a killer. And there's been some old cold cases that have been solved using that technique, and that's what we're asking for. The government, and we were told this by the FBI, the government, whether it's state, federal, local, they don't have the latest DNA technology. There's perhaps only one lab in the world that has this technology that can be employed. They're willing to do it, but they have to be asked to do it by the police.
So are you saying there's a potential another source of DNA, or the DNA that's originally been tested could take further testing?
Well, I think both. We know that there's, I don't know, 5 to 7 items that were taken from the crime scene for potential testing, and they were never tested.
Wow.
And there were some items that were taken as well that were tested, and that's where we got the unidentified male DNA. Those should be retested as well, because the technology is just so far advanced that they can, as one expert said, we can find a DNA sample on the eyebrow of a gnat. It's that precise now, and it's non-destructive.
Do they give you any explanation as to why they won't do it?
Well, the police public statement is, well, we don't want to destroy the sample, and we're going to wait till DNA technology improves. And that's nonsense. This technique used by at least one cutting-edge lab I'm familiar with is non-destructive. It doesn't damage or harm the sample in any way. And so the nonsense of saying we're going to wait, months, years until technology really gets good. Well, it is really good right now. It's not good in the government relative to what's out there. And I say that was confirmed to us by the FBI. They said, we don't have it yet. We'll have it eventually, but we don't have it yet.
Has there been any change in the leadership of the investigation? You mentioned that it was
Well, yeah, there has been. The head detective, who's been on this case for 25 years, was recommended for termination, along with several other investigators in that department, recommended for termination. And the lead detective was taken off the case and put on night patrol. So I don't know who's on the case right now, if anybody, in the Boulder Police Department.
Now, there was a second victim, I think it was about 9 months later, who was connected, or explain that to us. Explain that connection with the second victim and what happened in that case.
We heard about that, shortly after it happened, and it was in our neighborhood within a few blocks. It was a little girl about JonBenét's age. They were in the same dance class together that I think met weekly. And the mother heard a noise in her daughter's bedroom after they'd all gone to bed, and confronted a person over her daughter's bed, and he fled and jumped out a window and was gone. And at the time I thought, boy, that is too similar to what I believe happened in our case. The parents in that case had gone out for the evening, came home, set the burglar alarm, and went to bed. Well, the killer was already in the house when they got home. I think that's obvious, and that's what I believe happened in our case. And so very similar method of operation, I guess, by a criminal. And the police blew it off. In fact, the father of that young girl was, he was asked, how would you rate the Boulder Police? He said, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give them a -5. And very distressed with their casual approach to solving his daughter's attempted assault. The chief of police at the time said, well, the cases aren't the same because the second little girl wasn't killed, which is just nonsense, but that's what he said publicly. And so they never looked at the similarities and compared, compared DNA from the second case to our case. They had an unidentified palm print in the second case. We have an unidentified palm print. Did the police ever compare the two? I doubt it. So it needs to be looked at.
That is insanity when you think about it.
I know.
I always say this all the time. I don't believe in coincidences in this world of crime. You just don't believe until you prove that it's a coincidence. You assume it's not a coincidence that something like that can happen.
You should, yeah.
All right, John, if you could stay. John's going to stay with us. We have to take a short break, but John Ramsey will stay with us. We'll get into a few more details. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
This case ever comes back, I'll try the damn thing again because Mark Jensen belongs in prison.
Mark Jensen.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of intentional homicide.
She was poisoned by him using ethylene glycol.
Set to be retried after his conviction was overturned.
He deserves a new trial that is a fair trial.
Now, a second jury will determine his fate.
And our cameras will bring you every moment.
The Antifreeze murder retrial. Live coverage weekday mornings, 9/8 Central, only on Court TV.
Nice.
December 26, 1996. A brisk, clear morning in Boulder, Colorado. John Ramsey was up before dawn.
I was shaving, I guess, in the bathroom.
And we have a back staircase from the bedroom areas. And I always come down that staircase, and I'm usually the first one down. And the note was lying across the run of one of the stair treads. And it was kind of dimly lit because it was very early in the morning. And I started to read it, and it was addressed to John.
A terrifying message scrawled across 3 pages.
It said, "We have your daughter."
I just heard Patsy scream. I could tell by her scream that something horrible was going on. I didn't know what.
I immediately ran back upstairs and pushed open her door, and she was not in her bed.
26 years ago. 26 years ago, and from the beginning, I mean, one of the most bizarre parts of this entire mystery, the murder of JonBenét, was this letter that was written. John Ramsey is still with us, joining us tonight in Utah. Subject of a new documentary on Tubi, Suburban Nightmare. For more details, please check out that documentary. But John, that letter from the beginning was such a strange part of all of this. The amount of money for ransom, and then who it was from. As you look back on it, I know you've probably thought about it, you know, a million times. What's your take on this letter?
Well, what really puzzled me was why they asked for a ransom money of $118,000. Well, why not $1 million? Why not $500,000? What was significant about $118,000? Something obviously was significant to the killer, and that baffled me. And then, of course, how it was signed. Signed Victory SBTC. Well, what does that mean? I don't know. But whoever did this is just a demented, evil person. You got to just take that as a fact and not try to figure out a warped mind. But we immediately, with the help of friends, arranged for the ransom money to be available. The killer said he would call tomorrow by 10 o'clock, and I didn't know if tomorrow was the current day we were in, or was it tomorrow. And I thought, my God, if I got to wait till 10 o'clock tomorrow, 24 hours, I'm going to go crazy. That's just horrible. It's like when I tell people, it's like if you're in a shopping mall and your little 5-year-old child is all of a sudden out of sight. You just have this panic feeling of, where's my child? It's just a punch in the stomach. And, once you find him, then off you go. But, we had that feeling for, the morning. I thought, if I've got to wait till tomorrow at 10 o'clock, it's, I can't sleep. It's just horrible. So that was going through my mind. Was tomorrow? Did he write the note yesterday in the evening, and then tomorrow is today? So 10 o'clock came and went, no call, and the whole police case against us that caused them to think we were the killers was they said we didn't act right that morning. Well, I'm not sure how you're supposed to act, but They said when 10 o'clock came and went, John didn't jump up and down and cry and beat his head on the wall. It was a silly observation on their part, but that's the caliber of people we were working with. I've never faulted the Boulder police for being inexperienced, not knowing what they're doing. I have faulted them viciously for refusing help that was offered, skilled help that was offered. And that was their fatal flaw. It was a combination of arrogance and incompetence.
And it seems it's continuing, though. It seems like it's continuing, John, if they're still not accepting the help and being proactive and trying to solve a case. I mean, every night in the show, we are covering stories from around the country, and we, every day, every week, there's another cold case that gets solved. And it's because of all the help and all the resources and all the advances in technology, the testing, the retesting, the Delphi murders. They finally went back and started looking at some things, and they were able to solve that one. I don't understand what's going on.
Well, it's just, I think it's a combination of arrogance. They can't look any worse than they already do. They've really, I think pretty much people understand they really didn't do their job well. I don't know. It just does not make any sense. And that's why we've asked for help from the governor and the state and anybody that would help. We tried early on to get the case moved out of the police hands because we knew pretty quickly they didn't have the skill set. We petitioned the governor. This goes back to 1997. Petitioned the governor. We petitioned the attorney general of the state, and no one would meet with us. But we knew it wasn't going to go anywhere. In fact, if it stayed in the Boulder police hands, and the district attorney eventually brought in a retired, very experienced, almost legendary detective out of Colorado, and he told the district attorney when he was hired to look at the case. I've been watching the news. I don't think this is going to be hard to figure out. You just got to figure out which parent it was. And so Lou came in, Lou Smith, and said he spent about a month looking at all the evidence, and made very clear to him that there's a lot of evidence of an intruder and nothing that would implicate us. In fact, there was contrary evidence, DNA for unidentified male DNA and so forth. Lou sadly worked on this case for the rest of his life, and he died in 2010. And we lost a real friend and ally. But he said, I visited him on his deathbed. He said, John, if this case stays in the hands of the Boulder police, it probably never will be solved. And that was sobering. That was the first time I ever heard him say it wasn't going to be solved. He used to tell me, John, I'm going to get this guy. I will get this guy. And I knew he probably would, because he has had an amazing track record of solving old cases. But he said if it stays in the hands of the Boulder police, it probably will not be solved.
And now we're flashing forward, another 13 years from when he last handled the case. Have all the registered sex offenders or unregistered sex offenders who were in the area, have they all been cleared of this? Have they been investigated?
Well, to my knowledge, no. And there's a lot of them. We were shocked to learn. The father of, it's called the Amy case, this second case, asked the police to bring him a list of photos of all the neighborhood sex offenders, and they wouldn't do it. They said, oh, that's not going to do any good. It was a very logical thing for him to ask them to do, and they refused to do it. So I doubt that they've ever been looked at or investigated.
Unreal. John, really appreciate your time tonight. And again, our thoughts are with you. I know this has been something you've been carrying for years and years and years. And I hope next time we speak, we're talking about perhaps an arrest and maybe an arraignment, and we're preparing for a trial. Let's just hope for the best. John Ramsey, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for your interest in our case. It really helps keep it alive and keep the pressure on the police.
Absolutely. John Ramsey joining us tonight.